Hello, this is Antigone, your high-level ninja, giving you a real quick, and I mean quick, overview tour of GoHighLevel and what it can do for you and your organization. You may wish to hit pause and figure out she just said that. I don't know. She went so fast. That's why it's a video. So you can pause, you can replay, you can reflect, you can move on, all that other kind of stuff. The quick and easy version about GoHighLevel is that everything revolves around contacts. We're going to get more into that later. So everything revolves around contacts. It's a contact relationship management platform. Everything starts and ends with contacts. Everything on here either directly relates to the contact, interacts with the contact, or enables either of those two things. So without further ado, let's figure out what the heck that means in terms of functionality. All right, so here is your handy dandy tour of GoHighLevel. When you first open it, you will probably see something like this dashboard here. All right, so yeah, I don't have a lot of stuff on here. That's okay. This is called a report. And so obviously I haven't set up my report. But that said, you have all kinds of stuff that can go into your report. And each one of these boxes can be something different. Opportunity status. We're going to get more into these opportunity and stage and all that other kind of stuff later. But in essence, this is how contacts are migrating through or traversing your sales journey from someone who's never ever heard you through purchasing your products, becoming a customer, and then hopefully recommending their friends. Next up is the conversations area. This is where you will see conversations from your contacts, whether it is a voicemail message, an SMS text message, an email message, any messaging interaction that you have with a contact will show up in here. What's different is that this is for everybody, absolutely all contacts. And so you can filter based on different information about tags. So segmenting your list, which kind of messaging was it? Just show me all the recent SMS text messages, for example. Show me all of the most recent emails that have the word blah-de-blah in them, and so on. Next brings us to calendars. Woohoo, calendars! So calendars are actually in two places, and I change up my lingo on these. So I call them the people calendar, which you're looking at right now, and then the calendars, which are like the Calendly replacements. So the calendar that we're looking at here, we can select by user or by the Calendly replacement and see the appointments for that particular situation. So everything for Antigone, regardless of which Calendly it's from, or everything on this other one, regardless of which person it's to. Or you can say, just show me everything from this particular Calendly for this particular person, and so on. All right, so the next part is opportunities. Remember how I said that opportunities were, well, it's the journey, okay? We said we'd get into this later, and the reason why is because this is created originally for the sales pipeline, which is why it's called a pipeline, and each contact in your pipeline is called an opportunity. So GoHighLevel kind of turns that up a bit. So they're calling it your opportunities, which are tracked in your pipelines, which, yeah, is true. But then over on the left, I would think it would say opportunities. But hey, that's just me. So What are the stages in the sales journey? And of those stages, which contacts are in each stage? The next facet is good old artificial intelligence. So, do you want to have voice AI, meaning it's a voice, or do you want to have it text based? So, how do you want the AI to be used in your Go High Level? Do you want it to interact with people through a chat widget in like the lower left corner or of the screen most often? Do you want it to interact with people by voice, such as through a you can send voicemail messages out, or you can interact with incoming phone calls and all that other kind of fun stuff? One really important thing to remember about AI is that it has, you get so much AI usage, and then after that, you pay per use. I mean, it's not like a ton or anything else like that, but um, it's you pay per use. So this is something that you might need to think of in terms of your expenses going forward. So yay, you can use AI. Ooh, how much is it going to cost me? You do have to think about that ahead of time before you say, yeah, sure, I'm just going to go ahead and implement all this. The next big piece is your marketing. Yes, marketing. So do you want to have, you can use Go High Level to post to your socials, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, all kinds of different things, or you can have it send out emails to people. You can have it send out text messages to people. Um, Countdown timers is kind of an odd thing to have in here. It's, yeah, I think it's just a weird thing to have in marketing, but they have it in marketing because it's often used in your funnels and stuff like that for, hey, this is happening in such and such a date and time, or hey, you only have this much more time to take advantage of this offer. Yeah, okay. But the plus thing is that now you can have the same countdown timer that's used everywhere instead of recreating it all the different times that you need to use it. All right, the next thing is trigger links. That's kind of an advanced topic, so we're not really going to get into that too much at the moment. Another advanced topic is affiliate manager. So you can have affiliates in here. You know how like when you're watching a video and they say, hey, and if you click my links below, I might get some money back because I'm an affiliate. Well, you can have affiliates as well. So anybody who helps you advertise your offers or your events or anything else like that is called an affiliate. And you can track that in here by creating campaigns. Not at all confusing. We'll get into that later. Brand boards, pretty awesome. Track your colors and your fonts and your logos and use them throughout the site. Not as fully fledged and useful at the moment, getting there as they're updating this. Go High Level is literally a different program every single day. They're making changes that frequently. Ad Manager, you can post and track your Google and Facebook ads. And finally, Content AI. Wait a minute, didn't we have AI before? Yes, this is a different AI. So you can have the AI make posts for you or help you write your blog or help you create your funnel and your website or even help to write your emails. Again, every time you use the AI, you get, I think it's something like 30 uses for free per month. And then after that, you have to pay for each use. Keep in mind that 30 uses, so like if you have it in that widget in the lower left-hand corner and somebody asks it 5 questions, that's considered 5 uses. So again, figure out what your budget is and how much you can afford. Another thing to keep in mind is that they all use, all the AIs can access the same knowledge bases. So you can train the AI with your content and then use that information across all these different areas. Next is automations. So you can have what are called triggering events, meaning a tag is changed, somebody filled out a form, a specific date happened, anything, all kinds. I mean, there's dozens of these, literally dozens and dozens of these. So whenever any one of these events happen, what do you want to happen next? Do you want an email sent out? Do you want a freebie sent out? Do you want a call to go out? Do you want a text message to go out? Do you want to wait a specified amount of time before the next thing happens? Do you want to, I don't know, there's so many different things you could do. I think there's over 100 different options now of different actions that you can take seriously. Next is sites. Sites includes funnels, which is a specific journey that you guide people through. Websites are where you let people self-serve. They figure out where they want to rabbit hole through your content, and they just keep going to different places and different places. One of the things I like to say is that you can have a site that leads to funnels, but you rarely have a funnel that leads to a site. Anyway, that'll make more sense later. Stores, that's where you can sell stuff, and the stuff that you sell can be services, and it can be, you can even connect like your Shopify or your Printful store over here and woohoo, sell all kinds of stuff. All right, analytics, not sure why the heck that's in here anyway. Oh, I skipped over webinars. Webinars are where you can obviously sell and then present webinars. So GoHighLevel can also replace Zoom to a large extent. Next is your blog and your WordPress. If you have those someplace else, you can move them here. Why, yes, it does import WordPress. It works with most of the WordPress plugins, not all of them, but I would say well over 90%. So any WordPress plugin that you work with, you can do it over here too. All right, client portal. That is where somebody can modify their own credit card, find out which classes they're signed up for, and all that other kind of stuff. Next, we have ways of getting information from people. Form, typical form you see on there. Give me your name and your phone number and your email address and add you to the list, and here's the freebie that you get for giving me that information. Survey is more like, yeah, give me your name and phone number and email, but also on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think of blah, blah, blah? On of these 4 things, which is the most important to you? Which is the second most important? Or of these 3 things, what are the only things that matter to you that are part of your decision making? A quiz is pretty much the same thing as a survey, except that each response is scored. So like the 1 to 10 question, if they put in a 1, the score is 1. If they put in a 2, the score is 2, and so on. For the other one, for the top 1, you might weight that as being 30 points. For the second one, you might weight that as being 20 points, and so on. For which is the only one that matters for your decision making. That might have a weight of 50 points, or you can weigh these things any way that you want. Let's see, another thing is chat widget, which we talked about before, that little thing in the lower right hand corner usually, and then QR codes. QR codes are things that your phone figures out, and then it translates that QR code into a web address and then presents that form, that website, that funnel, something else like that, which is why QR codes is under sites. The memberships area. This one gets a little more interesting. That client portal that I kind of mentioned a little bit before, where they can self-serve. This is where you set that up and you give it its own settings, its own URL, all that other kind of stuff. Then you have courses, so that you want to offer people something like this. Here's your video and you can learn about how to do this and everything else like that. And then a community, so everybody who's interested in using your products, or you can have multiple communities, so you can have one community per product and stuff like that. Why would you use this community instead of, say, Facebook? Because on Facebook, they might get corralled. Oh, look, so-and-so just sent me a direct message. Oh, look, I just got this on my feed, and now they're off someplace else entirely, and they forget to come back to your content. You don't want them leaving. You want them to stay engaged with your content. Next is, I can't see it from here, certificates. Certificates pretty much, originally it only went with courses. If they finished a course, you could send them a certificate. Now there's gamification in communities so that they can get certificates from there as well, which is now why it's its own separate thing. The other piece is GoCollab Marketplace. GoCollab Marketplace is something that you can sign up for if your community has 10 or more people in it. Why would you do that? Because GoCollab brings in communities across all kinds of platforms, not just GoHighLevel. So once you have 10 or more people in your community, then you can post it on GoCollab, and everybody who's interested in what your company has to offer. So like, let's say you're selling a recipe kit. Let's say you're selling books. Let's say you're helping people to become better leaders or better managers. So you can have communities for each of these things, and then somebody can go to GoCollab and say, give me all the communities regarding leadership. And they can now see your community on that platform. I think this is great, and it's free. It comes with it. Next, we have media storage. So anytime you have media, well, not anytime, because there are some file formats that it will not host, which sounds weird because when you think of media storage, you think I can just upload any file and then the platform determines which I can use when. No. So it doesn't use, say, a WEBP web picture, web photo, anywhere. So you can't even upload those images. It can't use certain other file types. Like I know for the longest time, it couldn't use audio files. I think it finally can now. So you couldn't even upload audio files before. You had to have those hosted somewhere else. So anything that you want to use on your funnels, whether it's a video that's in your funnel, say a VSL, video sales letter, if you want to have your banners, your headers, your footers, images, background images, anything like that, you would put those here in your media storage, and then you could use anything in here on your funnel, on your website, in your emails, anything like that. This is also, if you see near the top, there's the brand boards. So your brand boards are stored in here. And so you can quickly go in and see what are the images that go along with my brand boards. So what does that mean? So now I know where to find my logo files instead of scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, trying to find them. Ta-da! They're in brand boards. Next, we go to integrations. What the heck are integrations? Well, it's a way to integrate get additional functionality out of GoHighLevel. So maybe you want to integrate your Stripe in here, so, or your PayPal, so you can accept payments. Maybe you want to connect your Shopify or your Printful and be able to sell things. The next section is reputation management. Now that people have worked with you, what do they think? Do they give you 5 stars? Do they give you 1 star? Most importantly, did you always have 5 stars and then all of a sudden now you only have 1s and 2s? Why? What changed? So you can look back and see just maybe how changes, whether you got a new salesperson who really sucks, or you changed your support model, something else like that. You can see how your reputation changed over time. And really, really, really important here, you can connect across multiple different platforms. So you can go through and see your Google reviews, your Yelp reviews, all kinds of different reviews. I think it's something like over 30 platforms or something like that. So it's a lot of different ones. You can also request for people to leave you a review. So, hey, thank you very much for being my client. What do you think of the service that we provided? Please leave it on whichever platform. Then, of course, you have ads. You have ads on Facebook, you have them on Google, you want to know how they're doing, you want to know how many appointments you got from there, how that happened, how that turned out, what is your conversion from these ads. So you can see all that across here. Next is settings, where you can change how your information is tracked, shared, or things are set up. At this point, I am going to not show you the business profile, my profile, or the billing dashboard because, you know what? This is kind of sensitive information. I love you and everything. You're amazing. You're awesome. Wait, I don't know who you are watching this right this second. Anyway, so I don't know that you necessarily need to see that specific information, but just know that it's here. And so this is where you can update the company information, its location, the phone number, personal profile information, such as the name, the email address of whoever's logged in, and so on. Then the billing, how are you going to pay for it? Remember how I mentioned how you have to pay for the AI after using it a certain amount? Well, you have to have a credit card on file to be able to do that, and the billing information is where you would put that. Here are your opportunity settings. So how do you want folks to go through the journey? How do you want, which pieces do you want enabled? What are your defaults? And on and on. This will make a lot more sense later when we start digging into, in a totally different lesson, when we start digging into more of the journey from being someone who just heard of you to becoming a client. So we'll go into this in a lot more detail over there. Sometimes GoHighLevel is a little bit confusing, like, hey, here we have workflows again. Okay, so this time it's the global workflow settings. So do we want to upgrade and get even more fun things to act as triggers or more actions to take? Who do we want to send an email to if something goes wrong? And very, very importantly, down at the bottom here, pause workflows. This is where you can say, hey, you know what? Our company is closed for 2 weeks from this time frame to that time frame. Go ahead and disable all workflows because, people aren't going to be going through those. Well, maybe you might want to leave your freebie workflow up and running. So this is where you can decide which workflows to run and which workflows to turn off, and for how long. And then you can say, hey, this is at the same time every year. Or, you know what, we're just going to set it up this one time for right now. Now we're getting into the other part of calendar settings. This time it is the Calendly piece that we were talking about. So the other one that we looked at before, that was for the person. Now we are looking at the calendar settings to replace Calendly. And we have all kinds of different features here. So we can set it around events, we can set it around classes, we can have round robin. What the heck is a round robin? Well, that is where, let's say you have 3 different salespeople and you want the appointments made in this one calendar to be relatively evenly split across all 3 people. You would set it up as a round robin and say, give everybody equal treatment. Or you can say, make this person get 20%, this person gets 30%, and this person gets 50% of the calls. Let's say somebody's in training, somebody's weaning off because they're moving to a different department, or someone is your main salesperson. So you can change that. Or you can just say, hey, whoever is next available, they get the appointment. Now we have some AI settings. So how do you want to configure your various AI bots or your AI employees if you want to set up one of those? Remember how I was saying the knowledge base? This is where you can give it all of the information for like your SOPs, your sales products, anything else like that. Whatever you want somebody to be able to ask a question for and get an answer on without human interaction. What can you put into that? That is called your knowledge base. And then that knowledge base is used across all your different bots and your AI employees to create content for you, to create responses, to even reply in a workflow. So you can have that handled automatically. So you can have a workflow where an email message comes in and then you read it for tone or mood or something like that. And then, hey, from the knowledge base, give them a response based on their mood. And it's all kinds of configurable. And same thing with your AI agent. So you can make different agents that can do different things for you and then be able to track what they did and generate reports. Which brings us to our email services. Who do you want to send and receive emails from? Which companies do you want to send them through? So like, do you use Google Desktop for your business emails? And then that means that it could match up messaging from your contacts and track that in that conversations area where we started, I don't know, 15, 20, 25 minutes ago now. Then it can also send messages showing as being from your email address, or it can go through its own dedicated domain from here. This is actually a huge topic, so I'm not going to go too much into it, but this is a large technical conversation that we need to have in terms of deliverability and stuff like that. Another huge piece of messaging is WhatsApp. So if your business is on WhatsApp, you can use AI to interact with people on there in addition to the other things we've already talked about, such as the phone calls, the text messages, the emails, the chat widget. Wherever your company wants to talk, chances are GoHighLevel is already connected through these integration things or services, or they're in the process of setting it up. This next one is really interesting In case you're not familiar with it, there's something called an engagement score. So depending on how much and how frequently and in what ways a contact interacts with you or is engaged with your company, give them certain scores, and then that total tells you how engaged they are with your organization. So in this case, these are the defaults that come with it. If they reply to an email, they get a point. If they set up an appointment, they get a point. If they actually attend the appointment, not showing on this screen, but something else that you can do. If they actually show up for the appointment, they get 10 points. Maybe it's only 2 points. You decide. Do you want to have more points, or do you just want to see a low number that's easy to digest as to who is most engaged with your organization? What this does for you is now you can have your sales team target their activities towards the folks who are most engaged with your organization. Next is conversation providers. These are other platforms, not just the ones that come with the system, but what other providers do you have for conversations? Do you use a different service for SMS text messaging? Do you use a different service for your voice over IP? So your internet phone, stuff like that. And connecting them into here, being able to track them in that conversations area. Which brings us over to our ad reporting. So our Google and our Facebook ads, how are they performing for us? What's our conversion? How much did it cost for us? How many clicks did we get? All that other kind of stuff. So you would set up your tracking pixels in your forms and your websites and even your emails, and be able to find out what's going on with these various things. And then, of course, you can find out any of this information across those. All right, now that we have had our brief, very quick, so that you can pause, introduction to what GoHighLevel can do, you might need to know how the heck it thinks. Well, it thinks in terms of contacts. First and foremost, it is a contact relationship manager. So everything is in terms of contacts. Everything starts with a contact. Everything enables interaction with a contact. Everything is revolving around how a contact interacts with your organization, how they interact with other contacts, how they engage with your content, how they work with your sales team. If so, whenever you're looking at a piece of functionality and trying to figure out how the heck does this thing work, remember, think of it in terms of working with your contact. Think of it from the contact's perspective, and that'll give you a much better understanding of how that piece of functionality works and what you might have to do to finagle it to do what you want it to do. All right, anything else that we're going to cover will be in other lessons, because obviously this was very fast. So we're going to dig into other topics and go more in depth into how to use these other features going forward.